unten den
Cool
Stream.
guys.
Kurz.
We are live. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us and welcome to this little live stream. Hey Netzkante, willkommen im Stream. A lot of German guys in the chat. Sven and Heiko, cool that you are joining us. I thought to invite this special guest tonight for talking a little bit about mastering, which is actually important. So we had a couple of discussions about this topic in our community, in the production community on PTV Victory Collective. And I thought it's cool to have somebody that I trust, and you can ask him a lot of questions. Welcome to Julian Reissner, who is with me. Hi, Julian.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
I'm great. I hope the guys in the chat are great as well. Um, yes, Julian is my master engineer, and I'm actually not sure since when we know each other. I think that started with this group called NetVio already. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Was back then. Maybe it was 2019 or 18,
Yeah,
something along those lines.
it's a long time ago. And I don't know, this whole mastering thing is, to me, it's important to have somebody that I know that the product, I always refer to this as a product, is going to be cool. And I always thought that you were giving my tracks like this little extra spark or this little extra pump. And that was a reason, or that's a reason why I always come back to you for the mastering.
Thanks.
Um, Introduce yourself to the guys in
Yeah.
the chat.
Hello, guys. My name is Julian. I'm doing audio and music production, I guess, like since 2016 or so quite some time now. I do my own music, and together with one of my former roommates under the name of Verschreift. And I'm also doing some solo stuff under the name Julian Wilhelm. That's also on Spotify. That's a bit more like techno orientated. And on the other hand, I do music production, especially more like music engineering, like sound engineering, like mastering and mixing for other guys as well.
I forgot to switch the nice scenes that I prepared. Okay, thanks for the little introduction, Julian. I want to talk tonight or today about my new album because that is what you did lastly for me. And this album is kind of special because it's not only a digital release, it was released on vinyl as well. That was the first time ever I did this. Releasing a record was a dream since I was a kid, to be honest. Well, maybe not a kid, maybe when I was 15 or 20, when I started music making, the whole business was totally different than nowadays. And now this dream came true, and it requires a couple of special adjustments to the master process. And I also think that this album marks like a milestone in terms of my own work because I remember you did the previous singles. I produced some progressive house tracks before, and I remember
Yeah.
that you always when I submitted the first versions to you, I remember that you always told me, ah, the kick is too long. The tail of the kick is too long. It smashes up with the bass, and this time you didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
um,
Usually,
so for me there was like a little for me there was a little milestone because you never did that before. So I told myself, oh wow, you learned something in terms of mixing because I think it's mastering mixing is a little bit like the, a shitty mix will be not the best master in my opinion, and or so it's good to think about a mix before you start mastering. So I think this was cool with this album actually. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. Like that's usually one of the main criterias. A lot of, like, let's say yeah, beginners or like intermediate guys get is like their kick is always too long, and you have to shorten it to make room and space for the bass. Um, and I would go even further and say that the production is most important before you even think about mixing or mastering. A good production is key to have like all the elements you need to fill out the frequency spectrum,
Mm.
and to go into mixing with a good sound already. And then if you have a good mix, you can top that up with a good master. And usually I'd say if like the mix isn't there, you, I mean, you can't save it with a master. You can definitely improve some things, but you will never like achieve 100% if no, if your mix is still lacking. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think so. So it's like a milestone in these two terms. And yeah, the album consists of a couple of tracks, and we are going through these. But guys in the chat, I see that there are some guys watching. If you have questions that you want to get answered, um, let us know in the chat. After we run through the tracks, we're gonna have like a Q&A session or something. And we're gonna talk about mastering and stuff in general. There was somebody asking why we are talking English and not German, because the chat was obviously German. The reason is that there are many people outside of Germany or Austria or Switzerland, and they might be interested in these topics as well, and that is why we decided to make this in English. All right. Cool. All right. The album is out since last Friday, and I would say let's start with the first track. That's the worst thing to live without, and I would be interested in some things, but first we're gonna have a quick listen to this track. I prepared some super fancy themes here. Wow. Okay, yeah, that's the first track of the album, the opener, The Worst Thing to Live Without. This is a total Ableton production. Compared to the next track, which is Empire, did you feel that there was a difference between the Ableton productions and the Doorless productions? Because Empire was a track that I performed on my analog boxes from Electron. Did you notice any difference, or isn't there anything to think about?
There were some differences between the tracks, but it's definitely not the case that it could tell like, okay, this is a totally different production approach than the in the box versions than with outboard gear. It definitely couldn't tell like, okay, those tracks were like the produced this way or like that way. Couldn't tell if I didn't know that.
As far as I remember, I think the doorless tracks were not really doorless. When I put them out on Spotify or something, I record the stems and then I
Okay.
clean it up a little bit, and I make sure that the levels are a little tweaked. Maybe that is the reason for it. Um, we also did this track in two versions. So there is a single version. This track was released as a single, and there's a extended version or the original version. Um, do you use the same mastering chain for that, or is it just like you put the same track twice in the same chain?
Yeah, like they are sonically identical, I'd say. Like it's the same. As far as I could tell, I got the same stems from you than for the long version.
Hmm.
Sounded exactly the same, and I treated it like identical so far. Um,
Yeah. All right. Let's take a listen at the next track, which is Empire. Empire is a track that I performed a lot during my live sets. And what is interesting about this track or the entire album, in my opinion, is this having this on vinyl makes it eternal. How, is it the right word for it? Um, these Doorless productions were always like a snapshot, and they are very quickly done because my skills develop further. And this is a track that I have the same feeling. Each time I perform it, I tweak it, and it sounds totally different than this album version. But still, people recognize it's this track from the album. Have a quick listen. I don't know if you guys hear this stupid audio, but something is not right, I guess. Nice. So the audio seems to be cool in the chat. Um, yeah, this was the second track of the album titled Empire. And yes, as I just said, this is the track that I played on my Electron boxes. And I recorded these separate audio stems, and then I tweaked that a little bit in Ableton. And actually, I added some synth, as far as I remember. How was it for? How was this track for you? Was it any notable things to tell?
mm, no, not really actually. It's like I had the feeling like they all were quite similar already, like sonically. They all had like certain characteristics and certain production styles that were like almost fitting quite good together already, and all very often it's like the same things, but it's not like that except for the like just like synth based tracks that were like huge differences. I wouldn't say so.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I can remember that the first two tracks were the oldest ones. I started working on this collection, I think 1 year ago, and it took me a very long time. I don't know about you. We had a chat about hardware some month ago. You asked me about the specific synth you wanted to buy,
Yeah,
and when you I don't know if you can relate to this. Producing in Ableton never seems to be ending, or it's hard to me to finish something in Ableton,
yeah,
while the tracks with hardware are very quickly finished. I don't know why this is. There were lots of discussions. Maybe it's because features are limited. um, I don't know. I'm much more productive, and Empire was one of these tracks actually. What's your experience?
yeah. Actually, I don't have too much experience producing outside of the box. I had some experience with a synth. It's called Deluge. It's, I guess it's Synstrom or so, or some similar code. I'm not. I'm sure not what was the company's name, but I tried to do some production on there, but I was never satisfied with the results I got because it was just like so simple and was like just
Mm,
like such a tedious workflow. But yeah, I can relate. Like producing in the box, there's like no boundaries, no limits. You always can tweak something. You can always like change things, add things, take things away, and it's sometimes really hard to like guess the point when it's finished.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's Synthstrom, and I had the Deluge as
yeah,
well.
Synthstrom, yeah,
But
yeah,
I thought the synth engines were pretty thin. I know
yeah.
some
I
people
can
don't think
agree.
so, but to me they were not really thick or not really aggressive. They were boring, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can definitely can relate. Yeah,
They were actually the reason why I sold it. And I think it's cool. I think they, I think they released like a community update, which is cool. So they asked the community about features and they developed this further. But the little box is so overpacked with features. I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan of that. Actually, it's the same with the Octa track. Um, yes, I want to play another track, and that is a really special track, in my opinion, because there was no Ableton included. There is only one machine playing, and that is a Lyra 8 from Soma Labs. Soma Labs is a Russian company, as far as I know. And this is a track that is not reproducible because you cannot reproduce anything played on the Lyra, and it's like a drone composition. Let's have a quick listen on this one. Yeah, Transfiguration. Um, how was it when you heard this for the first time? The Lyra 8 is a synth. It's an analog monosynth. Um, what was the challenge with this track? Was there a challenge for you compared to the other tracks?
Yeah, I'd definitely say so because like it lacks any drums, and usually like drums are the borders for you, like the lowest and the highest in the frequency spectrum, and like always like a good reference point to measure against. And for me, it was difficult. Like, what do I want to do to this? Like, what will I like try to improve it?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in the end, I guess I decided just like to try to bit like make it a bit clearer and control the dynamics a bit, because but it was difficult because like as you hear, like at one point it distorts, and it's not just be, not because it's hitting a limiter or any box, like it's not limited, just like to protect against overshoots. But I guess it never really is working.
Mm-hmm.
um but it was just like just balancing it out a bit and maybe try to increase the depth. But yeah, I can remember it was a difficult challenge, like to decide what I will change, and if there's something I want will like improve on. Yeah, was not the easiest, and yeah, that's what we decided in the end.
There was a second track that I released on Bandcamp only. I don't have it here right now. It's called Darkness. It's like a bonus performance, 15 minutes long. And it's the same concept. So this was also performed on the Lara 8. And there, I think you hear it a little bit better. It starts very quiet, and in the middle it gets very harsh. Maybe it's the same challenge with this track.
Yeah, exactly. Because like usually, if you're at the mastering stage, like distortion is something you want to avoid, but in this case, it's like artistically. So yeah, I had the same thing, but actually, I can remember when I did the version for Bandcamp, the other track.
Hmm.
And I was thinking maybe if I should like try to convert it to stereo, maybe like push out the sides or like create some artificial side information. But in the end, I decided against it because I didn't do it with this track we've already heard yet.
Hmm.
And so I decided, okay, we're gonna leave this one in mono as well.
Actually, it's not true. I remember I was using the Big Sky
Yeah,
for
there's some reverb on
reverb,
it. Yeah, that's true.
and there is that I think I used the algorithm for the shimmer
Hmm.
because the reverb is pitched like an octave up, and there is a second voice pitched a little bit, and it gives this very significant sound, I guess. So it's not completely Laura 8 only. I'm a liar. um, yeah, this track is one of the tracks I heard the most, to be honest, and I wanted to throw it out of the album. I was thinking of deleting it because, in my opinion, it was disturbing the flow of the other danceable tracks. And then um, I'm I was preparing a remix version of this album, which is dropping in early May. And Julian did a remix with his partner as well, a Fresh Drive remix on one of the tracks. And I've sent it out, all of the tracks, to the remixers. And I told them, choose one that you would like to remix. And most of the guys, I think I requested at 7 remixers, choose Transfiguration, and I discuss it why they choose this one and not a danceable track, and they said it's refreshingly disturbing the flow of the album. And
Hmm.
I thought thinking about it, and I think there was a good decision to leave it in there. Cool. Um, the next track I wanna listen is "Swim to You." Um, simply because this song has a long history. Um,
It does.
let us quickly listen to the intro. Yeah, Swim to You, a song with a story. I can't remember if you also mastered the very first version of this track, did you?
Yeah, it did.
So this track started last no 2022 as a part of a art performance we did. No, it's not a. I will tell you, Heiko. It's not my. Oh, that would be nice if I could sing this way. No, sorry, I can't. So this track started as the introduction for a contemporary art performance we did in Stralsund in Germany, and I was so in love with the sounds. So this track contains some sounds from the Vermona performer that I decided to make a single from this, and I requested a singer on Sound Better to sing over it, and it was beautiful. He made a beautiful vocal track from this. Um, and I'm not sure what happened. I just did a remix last year in March, which is now this version, and so these the vocals you hear, Heiko, are some artifacts of the original vocals. But this track is going to continue. Funnily, a friend of mine, a singer songwriter from Zurich, she heard this song and she posted a remix on Instagram Reels, and she completely turned this track in a totally other direction by adding a hook line to it. And now we produce a single from that. And this whole project was so easygoing that we decided to make more music in the future, maybe under a different project name. So this track has a lot of storytelling inside. How was it for you, Julian?
Oh, it was one of my favorite because like I knew the like it's an like also a song without drums, and then I heard the remix, and now having like almost like the remix of the remix, it's quite a nice story for me, I guess. Um, yeah, it was nice actually, and I must say, like, I really like the first version of the vocals, and like the new one that's not out yet. I really enjoy as well. So I
Hmm.
really like this track.
I think working with vocals is not so easy. I remember we did a track together, or mastered one of my tracks titled "Holding On." Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I guess that was beginning 2020 when the pandemic hit, if I'm remembering correctly.
Exactly. And that track was a label released it, a Zurich-based label, and it was at the beginning of the Corona pandemic, and they wanted to push this track like, "Be strong, hold together, we can we can go through this." But I remember the vocals were sing in many, many layers. And I remember
Yeah.
that the vocalist complained at the end. Still, we put so much work into this. And she
Yeah.
still complained, or her management still complained about the quality of the track. And there was a point when I stepped back from using vocals. Well, maybe I'm using little chopped things, but complete vocal tracks are, to me, a next level thing when you enter the EDM stage, or if you're entering this very competitive vocal dance area. What
Hmm.
do you think about this? What is your experience with your own projects? You did also some vocals, right?
Yeah, we recently released a track called Cruise Control that features vocals that we also did like recorded in the studios with a friend of ours. Yeah, I can remember like your track like Holding On. Yeah, it was quite a difficult mix, but yeah, but from a production side speaking, like I have the feeling like sometimes it's really good to have vocals, but sometimes you're like a bit afraid that it will be maybe too poppy or it's just like not a good fit for the style you're doing. um but I think like sometimes it really can like improve a track massively if you add something,
Mm.
any kind of like vocalization, if it's like really real lyrics or just like as some like singing or so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I would really like to play this new version, which we retitled to Siren because otherwise I have three tracks with Swim to You, which is confusing. How you call these playlist curators. But it's not out yet, so we're going to release it next month. Um, Swim to You, yes. Um, Another track that comes from one of my art performances is Leaving. And Leaving is a slower number with no beats, honestly. It's also one of the more quiet tracks. Let's quickly listen to that one. Oh, shit. Yeah, Leaving. Somebody in the chat, welcome Bruder Kong from Cologne, said that it's snowing in Cologne. I think Germany is having rough times with snow at the moment. As I'm in Switzerland, I can't relate because we had a sunny day today. Um, but yes, this track could be a snowy, it could be from the snow. And you told me, Julian, when you heard this, that this was the most enjoyable track to master. Why?
Oh, did I? I
Yes.
think I just didn't do much to it. Because it was like thinking was good at it as it is. Just like maybe improving some textures, maybe work out like some nice harmonics with some sort of saturation, and I just like uh, let, let it as it was at the time.
It's actually performed on, I think, only on the analog rhythm. So this was used for the outro of a performance called, ooh, I think Shopping Bag. It was the same show than Swim to You has its origins in. Um, and I remember that you told me that the effects in this track were the most clearest of all. Why
Yeah.
is that?
Whew, I can't tell you precisely because I haven't
Got
seen the
you.
production, but it's just like, I guess just a good choice, like what you use, like how much. It's just like fitting for me.
All right. Um, so we have still some times, guys. Bruder Kong, if you have any questions about mastering that we can answer, let us know in the chat. We're gonna have a FAQ session soon. Before I want to play the favorite track of the album, which is Horizon. So we don't go through all of these, so a couple of I left out. Um, and Horizon is, yeah, as I said, it's my favorite track because it has no melody. And it is like a constant stream of something. Yeah, and let's listen yourself. Ooh, there we go. Horizon. The reason, or one of the reasons why I like this track is if you guys know my way of producing music, also with the Electron boxes, I use a lot of random, um, a lot of random things. And Horizon was a track where I wanted to reproduce these probability effects or probability tricks from the Electron boxes with Ableton. And the entire track is a pure random thing. So this whole stream that you hear, this pad, is randomly controlled by LFO. So each time I recorded this one, it sounded different. And that is why I like this track so much, because it contains a lot of unpredictable elements. I did that a couple of times with other tracks on this album. Empire is one of these as well. And I think that makes it a little bit more surprising, to be honest. Um, that was Horizon. Yeah, that was this album. Um, any conclusion before we switch to the FAQ session, Julian?
Difficult. What can we conclude? Like, I'm quite happy like how it turned out in the end. Like I can remember the process. We had like a lot of talks, like how in detail do we want to go? Like, do we want to like fix everything, like correct every level and go in detail? And at one point, I can remember we decided let's leave it that way and not overwork things. And I think for this track, or
Mm-hmm.
not track for a whole album, worked quite well, I'd say. Um, yeah. Uh, Yeah. Do you have any conclusions, like how satisfied you are with the sound it turned out at the end, or is there something like from production or like a sound side you would say, okay, maybe we should have done things differently?
No. Mm, no, I don't think so. What made a huge difference with this project is the fact that it's printed on vinyl, which is, to me, this album feels already outdated. Honestly, it's like I want to go further with new tracks, but this is now the thing I have to live with at the moment.
Yeah.
No, I think the mastering got pretty cool. And I so that is also so the point when we can go into this little discussion or FAQ session. Guys, if you want to know anything, let us know in the chat. Um, I think it's important to have this mastering. For me, it's a big step in the production process because the moment when I send this to you, I'm done with the work. And then I can say, okay, this is maybe a little bit too quiet, or maybe that hat is not in my on my mind, or whatever.
Yeah.
But the moment when I wrote the stems and sent this to Julian always means to me like I'm done with my work. Um, and to let people know, we usually master the tracks. We don't do stereo masters. I always like to do stem mastering. So I always bounce down the track to maybe 5 or sometimes more tracks, stereo stems that I then send for the mastering. And that is the point that I think is important for my work. And that leads me to a very interesting question that we had. Um, I will answer you. We're gonna go to your answer to your question soon, Heiko. External mastering versus do it yourself. There was a discussion on Instagram on this point.
Yeah, there was.
What is your position of this?
Yeah, so to be transparent, when we or when I myself produce some tracks, or when we do finish some productions with Verstreift, we also send them away for mastering. I'm not doing it myself, nor does Nico, um, because there's the same points. Like, first of all, like if we send out the mix, we do just stereo mastering. That's what does the trick for us at the moment,
Hmm.
and it's just like you're done with production. You're like, okay, somebody will take care of it and take it over the finish line and give us the final delivery product. And if there's some mistake or something that we can improve on the mix, we'll get the feedback, improve the mix. Usually it's just like one revision. Back in the days, maybe we needed two, but usually we just do one revision, even max.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just like our mastering guy takes the track and like a few days we get it back mastered. um, and for me, like outsourcing mastering is definitely first of all, you have a new set of ears that are not like emotionally connected to the track. There, your mastering guy has listens to the track for the first time, and he's not like he's like not aware of all the things you did in the mix, or like every decision you take. He's just like listening to it, first impressions, and maybe, yeah, okay, we just maybe brighten up things, or give us some mixed feedback and says, yeah, guys, can you just turn up the vocal by like 1 or 2 decibels, and that's fine. So that's just like one of the things. And most of the time as well, like if you've done the mixing already, you just, most of the things you're hearing you fixed in the mix, and that's you do you do your mix as best as you can. And then like what you want to it's difficult like to hear some, maybe some mistakes or some things that are not as perfectly balanced, because like you have listened it for so long, you've listened it to like say 60 hours or longer.
Hmm.
And like for me, it's just the set of fresh ears, fresh monitors, new room, um that's what's really important, and have the feedback, and also just to
Hmm.
make take an end to your own production. um yeah, that's definitely on the pro side. I'd say on the con side, what speaks against it is like, first of all, you're giving away control of your own like artistic product. You're like, okay, I have my own vision. I want it to sound it like exactly this way, and that's totally fine. The same thing goes like also like budget. If you can afford mastering, is also a different question. And some people just like say like, it's mastering is one of the most debated things in audio at the moment, I guess. And some people just like, let's say, not believe in it,
Hmm.
um, which is like a bit nonsense, because like usually if you go with a good engineer, you'll get like a decent result, and it's not like a scam. But you can definitely like have some masters where you're like, yeah, maybe it's not the perfect like the thing you imagined. Yeah,
Yeah, we put
so that's
ozone
like on the
over
pro
it.
and con side. Yeah, exactly.
There were some relevant points, I think, like fresh ears. It's also one point that I appreciate. Also, to have somebody else listen to that who maybe hears different things. Like we had this a couple of times with this production,
Yeah.
that I tend to overuse rides in my tracks, or
Yeah.
I tend to make these too loud. And it's good to have somebody who tells you, Matthias, maybe we should reduce this a little bit, or maybe delete the ride, or whatever. And I think that's a very good point. But this discussion on Instagram in particular, this guy said mixing is more important than the mastering. Mastering is just like I don't give a shit like this. Um, I think he's on the right side, as we just said in the beginning. If you have a mix that is missing out some frequencies, or that is misbalanced, the mastering will not be able to fill these gaps, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. Like if we take the example like of the too quiet vocals, for example, you can in mastering you can add an equalizer, for example, and just like push up the frequencies where the vocals hit. But at the same time, it will also like push up the guitars, the synthesizers, all that stuff. So in mastering, you cannot like precisely work on an element without changing the whole mix or the whole like appearance of the production. So that the mix and production is always more important than the mastering. That's true, because like in the end, if that's not strong enough, you cannot fix it. But in the
mhm.
end, you have to view it as a whole chain, and it's always the weakest link. So if your production is really good and your mix is really good, but the mastering isn't done properly, it's always only as good as the mastering. The same goes for production. Like if the production isn't there, and you give it away for mixing, and you will have like a good mix and good master, still like the question is it a good song, is the idea good. So I like to view it like a whole, and
Yeah.
you have to like take care of every single step. But he's right that in the end, like if the mix and production isn't good, like mastering won't fix it for you. That's true.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the vinyl. There was a question from Heiko. How long did it take from delivery, Julian, till arrival of the vinyls? Um, I think that went pretty fast. So this vinyl production facility, they included like a test pressing. And I think from delivery to the first test pressing, it was like 3, 4 weeks, and then 3 more weeks for the final batch. So I think all in all, it was like 8 weeks or something. But their estimated delivery time was longer. It was like 4 months or something. Um, I hope that answers your question, Nogazian. In terms of the vinyl mastering, Julian, how was it for you? Did you ever did this for for vinyl before mastering? What was Were there any specialties or any complications or anything that you thought, yeah, that is special, or?
Yeah, so to be transparent, that was actually my first time mastering for vinyl, but in the end, it's not as tricky as maybe things like people want you to believe, because like vinyl has some certain limitations, that's true. And one of the things like vinyl is definitely not good at it's like taking like huge bass hits, like having huge dynamic range in the bass, because like then the needle while cutting has to do like a huge excursion and maybe will like cut into the next groove. That's like something vinyl isn't good at. The same on the other side, like vinyl is also not as good in taking huge amount of like high-end information. Usually you want to have like those parts bit calm down. Usually most also pressing facilities will give you like a sheet which like values you want to
Mm,
hit. Like for example, like your mastering facility was requesting a 12 decibel per octave filter on the low end at
mm-hmm,
40 hertz, and the same for the top end at like obviously like a low pass filter to cut out the highs at I guess for 70k 17 I mean. That's usually some things. And also with vinyl you don't want to be like super dynamic, because like as I told you, like the huge excursions are usually not good. The same as like also for over compressing, you just like what I like was talking to a lot of guys that were doing that. Like some people said they just like give away the CD masters and it's gonna be fine,
mm-hmm,
and some say yeah they just like check for the sheet that the pressing plant will give them. That's just like cutting highs and lows and then keeping the level in a certain loves range, and that's what I did. And I also like just to be extra sure, just did some de-essing on the top, just to keep it down, like have a really mid-focused mellow let's say master. And I think that turned out quite nice.
mm-hmm.
um yeah,
Did you
but
receive
it's
the vinyl?
not yet, but from all feedback I've got so far I think it's gonna be good. And there's some software, it's called simulate. I did some simulations just
Mm-hmm.
like how it assume like should sound, and so far was quite satisfied. But I'm really like curious for the end result to say yeah, like okay. But vinyl is a bit of a different thing, because then it also comes down to to your setup, your needle, all those things.
Yeah,
But I'm really curious how it sounds in the end.
yeah. Should arrive in a couple of days, I guess.
Yeah. I was checking before we did the streams if it's there, so I can have a final listen to tell you, okay, yeah, I'm really satisfied or not. But yeah,
All right. Um, One last question for you. The final tip: if you tell somebody, if there's somebody just starting make music making,
yeah.
and you have to give them the tip for mastering beginners, or
Ooh, for mastering
what is it?
beginners.
Oh, if they have no clue what mastering is, what would you tell them to take care about in their
Mm,
first production or in the mix?
that's difficult. First of all, I might would tell them to not care about mastering at all, because in the end it's not like super complicated or that nobody can do it. But in the end, like you're working on a stereo file, and every change you make will have a huge impact on the sound. Like mastering equalization, you're talking like less than 2 decibels, like rather less than 1 decibel. So I don't think like a beginner should like really go into this part first. I think you should focus on
Hmm.
production. Have, like as we said, like is your kick, is it too long? Is your bass sitting nicely? Like, do you have too much low end? And I'd say like with a lot of beginner productions, it's always true that the kick is too long, and they usually have like super loud sub basses because they don't have the monitoring yet to
Exactly.
tell that. And you have like super loud, just like sine basses that are like 60 decibel louder than your kick. And then next thing is like proper side chaining, making sure that your kick cuts through and there's no clashing with the bass. and then you go bit more up in the frequency range, and you just check your like lower mid range. That's usually one of the other points that a lot of beginner productions are lacking, that there's too much going on in the lower mid range, or the exactly opposite, where they're like, okay, my mid range is too muddy, or my low mid range is too muddy, where they just like cut out everything and you have a super thin production.
Hmm.
And especially if you have like genres with a lot of pads in them in there, that's usually like the area that gets quite muddy, like 2 to 600. And then you go up, like let's say, to the top end, and that's what we had a discussion about the rides. That's usually the other thing, like if you don't have like a good monitoring solution, where you, it's just like, for some people, difficult to place the hi-hats. Sometimes they're just like super loud, and the leveling is not right, and it's just like super piercing, and if you just like turn down, it's just missing. So that's another like area to check. So my solutions would be, just first of all, have fun producing. Then if you feel like comfortable and you want to put out stuff, then just take reference tracks, listen to them, um, see what your favorite artists are doing, what are they doing for the low end, like how is it working, and same for the top, and have that as a reference. And then you can go and say, okay, I want to polish it up, maybe I want to master it myself. Then your first step would be just like to get near commercial level, but I would not recommend to go exactly there. Your first productions won't have the loudness, neither in the mix nor in production, to get pushed
Yeah.
that far. Just like get some level, maybe check for compressor, and then maybe an EQ, and take it from there. But yeah, first of all, just have fun producing, and that's it. Because yeah, there's no point like having you done your first productions and two productions or so, and then like really taking a deep dive into mastering. I don't think that's a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool tip at the end of our little stream. Hey, Julian, there was a nice talking to you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking your time.
Thanks for having
Um,
me.
what are your next projects? Are you free for mastering projects?
Yeah, I guess by like the end of the month, I should be free. Maybe mid of next February. Um, then I should be having more free time to do some more projects. So if you guys got some, you know how to find me, and you can hit me up, or we can just can have a chat about any like music related or production related topics. I'm always open for that.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Also for the guys in the chat, thanks for joining. There is another live stream, so I broadcast every Wednesday at this time at 7. So if you want to join me next week for a live production, next week I'm gonna produce with my Electron setup. And thanks Heiko for joining. Thanks Netzkante, also Bruder Kong, and who was there as well? Sven and all the other guys in the chat. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm gonna prepare for going to Italy on Friday, so I'm gonna um, go through the warm side of Europe. And I wish you a good time and thanks for joining. If you have any questions, comment below or reach out Julian directly on Instagram or me. And see you soon, guys. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye bye.